Okay, Susan, we can start. I can tell a little bit about our startups here to Nick. Nick, you get a lot of Bangladeshi startup founders here in your in this chat. So Daniel will be asking you questions, but the listeners are people from Bangladesh. So there are a lot of our tech founders. They have some of them have some AI chatbot too, and some have web system, mobile applications, and some are also working with products. So if they are not one of the founders who are doing the same thing, but they can be the user of this kind of automation tools.
Sure.
Okay. So everybody, I would say that I'm giving it to Daniel and Nick. And if you have questions, you can ask your questions through that chat box, chat area. So you can ask your questions if you want.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. Thank you.
That's good. Let's get started. Thank you, Nick, for making the time to join us today. I'm sure we're going to have a great interactive session. So why don't we start with you telling us a bit about GotBot and how it uses AI to drive business automation.
Perfect. Okay, so very quickly, GotBot was basically an idea in 2016. And by 2017, we had basically built out the platform itself and gotten our first client, which just happened to be Toyota. And basically the way it works, it's an agnostic chatbot building platform that connects to anything from WhatsApp to web chat to X to Facebook Messenger, you know, anything with a DM really. And we started by deploying NLP, which was natural language processing. So we've done a bit of that. Then we created something called a form editor, which is basically a decision tree, and all the way through now to LLMs. So currently the stack is based off of 3 different technologies, being natural language processing, decision trees, and LLMs. And mainly based as a B2B play, but obviously it's used by our clients to cater to their customer base. I don't know if you want me to go through some use cases in terms of like what people actually use it for, or if we'll get to that in a little bit.
You're welcome to touch on that while we're on the topic.
Cool. So our clients tend to be fairly big blue chip clients with a large customer base, and we often look at automating a lot of the repetitive, mundane tasks that they have in order to just get clients what they want very, very quickly on what we refer to as their channel of choice. So helping people where they want to be spoken to with what they need help with is the easiest way to kind of explain it.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Cool.
So what industries or business processes does GotBot primarily focus on when it comes to automation?
Yeah. So because we've built a framework, really, it's been used by anyone. So OEMs, which are basically car brands, all the way through to retailers, all the way through to insurers, and you know, financial services tend to be kind of the most prevalent kind of client that we have. Having said that, we can kind of build anything off the framework, right? It gives us an opportunity to delve into multiple but this different kind of industries and solve problems for each one of them. Like if we look at the banks that we have, for instance, not one of the use cases has been the same. So everyone uses the framework slightly differently. But the majority of it is to basically onboard clientele and then allow them to check certain things. Like you'd be able to check, you know, what the interest rate on your credit card is. You'd be able to check how much money you still have on your card. You'd be able to to ask questions around refunds, anything like that. So I'll give you a very good example of one of the earliest things we started with. So Toyota, when we started with them, had about 1 million people on their Facebook page, and they were asked multiple times a day if there are job openings. So someone had to sit there and then type in, listen, go to this job portal here and type in X, Y, and Z, and we just automated that. So the agents could actually just start concentrating on their actual job, because that never really gave a return to that client, right? But they did need to answer the question. So, you know, by doing small things like that, you kind of change the landscape in terms of how people are using the platforms, really.
Yeah, got it. That makes sense. So switching to maybe AI, how do you see AI transforming these traditional business processes in the near future and already happening?
I mean, the way I see it is, you know, if you look at where NLP started, the one thing it really struggled with was context. So if you're looking at, like in South Africa, we've got Pineapple, for instance, which is an AI insurer, right? Instead of having someone that's sitting there and trying to help you through everything, a lot of this information can now be captured in AI or by AI through conversations. So we understand what the client needs to give us to get that end result. So now what's happening is the AI is kind of doing it through a conversation, and we're heading towards this AGI, which basically means artificial general intelligence. And I think the next step that's going to help businesses is something called an AI agent, which will be able to basically perform a couple of, it's like almost more versatile. It's capable of reasoning and some problem solving, and also being able to change context as we do as human beings. So I think once AI agents become kind of a little bit more popular and more established, you're going to be able to pair that with the large language models and NLP and things like that to create an end-to-end solution that will just help businesses scale far easier, far quicker, and there won't be as much kind of human error. I don't think we're ever going to get rid of you know, the human portion of it, but a lot of it will change. I think, you know, I'm waiting to see what happens, you know, in the next 2 years, especially with some of the releases. And if you watch what Sam Altman from OpenAI and Elon Musk and all of these guys are saying, you know, there definitely is the rise of AGI. It's here, it's on our doorstep, and people are starting to use it. So I think that's where the major kind of like differences are going to come in, because the bots will basically have context on who they're speaking to, you know, what their problem was last time, how they can help them now and quicker, you know? So all of that kind of binds together just for a better customer service.
Yeah, I definitely agree that it's becoming more popular. And I also don't think we will ever get rid of the human portion, as you explained.
Yeah.
So what are some of the most impactful use cases that you've seen in a significant improvement in efficiency, or specifically cost savings when doing automation?
Yeah. Okay, so I mean, when I look at things, right, I can give you a classic example of something that happened with us recently in South Africa. So in South Africa, at the beginning of September, they changed the law for our basically our provident funds, which are our RAs, our retirement annuities that are then stored in provident funds and so on. So they basically took your RA and they split it into these two pots, they called it. So they created this two-pot RA. And what ended up happening is a lot of people went into, you know, the big banks or their insurers or whoever held their life policy, right, or their RA, and now wanted to draw some of that money. So our bots run at one of South Africa's biggest kind of financial institutions called Momentum. And in 1 week, we did over 6 million messages through WhatsApp, helping people. On the 4th of September, we had our single biggest day ever by sending out and in 1.8 million messages. And then at its peak, we were doing 3,000 messages per 60 seconds. And in those 5 days, we helped 120,000 people. And of those 120,000, 20,000 people actually drew money through our system. So let's just take just that 20,000 people, right? I mean, what are you going to forget the 120,000 people in 5 days? I mean, what kind of workforce would you need to sit on a phone with someone, explain everything, and then allow them access to now draw some of their savings out of their retirement annuity? It's insane to think about, you know, over a 5-day period. So something like that, I think, is kind of phenomenal, because we helped a lot of people very, very quickly with money they needed. Then if we take a look at other kind of successes, like we've been able to put bots in to certain businesses in South Africa, for instance, they have like 1,500 seats call center. And of all of the calls that are coming through, about 60% of those calls are regarding basically 5 different kind of questions. So by automating those 5 different questions, what used to take that call center 6 odd minutes to kind of you know, rectify, tell the person what's going on or give them that information, we took that 6 minutes down to 43 seconds, and our bots could then service everyone 24/7, which their call center only runs from 8 until 5, right? So we were able to assist 24/7 and 6 times faster. So that's a massive kind of like cost saving there. And then when you also look at just, you know, either you can save costs for clients or you can actually make them money. So that's a cost saving on that side, right? And then on the money making side, we had some massive wins very, very early on with one of South Africa's biggest retailer, second biggest retailer on Facebook with regards to social commerce. And we put a bot up, and we basically ended up making them around 2 million Rand in the first month off of web chat. Once that POV was over, we moved that chatbot into Facebook, and we started making them 2 million Rand a week in sales. So, you know, there are very few things that can kind of do that. And it's all based on human behaviors, right? What we're seeing in general is that people don't actually want to talk anymore. You know, I've probably got a lot of youngsters on this call, and the stats are really scary when you look at them, because about 64% of people actually don't want to message or sorry, talk to people. They want to message. They don't want to sit on the phone waiting for someone, right? So you got 64% of people actually preferring to message over talking to someone on the phone. Then what you'll also see is that 57% of, you know, consumers are actually expecting brands to be accessible 24/7. They don't care that you're tired and want to go home. They want to access information, and they want to access it now. So when you look at the rise of an Uber or an Uber Eats or Mr. Delivery or Netflix, what are they? They all on demand. That's what's happening. You want your food now, order it now, you'll get it. You want, exactly. You want to watch your favorite show, you can watch it now, and you can watch all of it. So this is all feeding into the kind of market behavior. And as kind of Gen Z kind of like moves into the working space, which they are now, they're going to demand these types of things, you know. And then also when you're looking at it, if someone has the ability to ask questions in real time while they're making a purchase, the likelihood of them purchasing goes up by over 70%. So there all these nuances around how people interact. If you can come in at a very specific point and help your client out, they will probably be more incentivized to do what they're doing, which is possibly buying your product or speaking to your brand or anything like that.
I'm definitely one of those people that would call as a last resort.
Yes, there
I
you
know
go.
far too many would rather do the bots. Yeah, I know a lot of them. But I also know a lot of businesses that are hesitant to adopt AI. So what would you say to these businesses and they're hesitant due to concerns and complexity in high implementation costs specifically?
Well, I mean, it's when I look at it, you know, it's you're looking at it in two ways. I think when I speak to the young kind of founders here, just remember this: you're either saving them money or making them money. So when you go into it, maybe ask the clients, like, what are you looking for? Oh, we're worried about the high implementation costs. Okay, I hear you. But shouldn't you be worried about not using technology like this to bring in more money, or you know, whatever it is? So I think when you approach a business, and listen, we were doing this ages ago, you've got to be able to define the KPI with the client, the key performance indicator. So in other words, what is success to them, and what does that success look like? Because when we created these proof, we didn't even call them proof of concepts, because we knew the concept worked. So we created proof of value. So now, what value are we trying to show you? I promise you, when you save someone money or make them a lot of money, they will throw their money at your solution. So I think, you know, I would say to clients that they're missing out on you know, all this innovation, and one of the kind of biggest leapfrog moments in recent human history, because they're worried about budgets. And what's going to happen is businesses that are using AI are going to eat them up. So, you know, the choice is theirs. Either they sit and they carry on, and there's going to be a rise of a challenger brand that's going to eat their breakfast, and then they're going to go, oh, why did we not do this? Or they listen to you, and off you go. So I think another lesson there is, you know, when you go and speak to these clients, is be prepared. Understand what your ecosystem looks like, what the market looks like, and walk in with an extremely compelling use case. So, you know, when we won Momentum, for instance, one of our guys was one of their clients. He had an accident, and he struggled so badly to just basically get his claim paid out. And that's actually how we got that client. Is we said to him, but guys, you could do 1, 2, 3 things and it would cost X, and then you know, you just have so much more customer satisfaction, and your customer's going to stay with you, all of that type of stuff. And they took it.
Yeah.
And not only did they take it, we went from 1 bot to 9. We're building our 10th bot for Momentum now, just because of success after success. Of the 11 odd bots that we've built for them, 2 have failed. So failure and innovation go hand in hand, which I think is a great kind of saying.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely a learning curve, each one you make.
Yes.
So
I do think there's
coming on
a
to,
question as well, but we can carry on, just so that you do know there is a question in the chat.
yes, there is. We can go to it before I continue. How do you access business knowledge in order to respond to customers?
Cool. So that's a good question. So what we end up doing is, you know, we've got a methodology that we run. The first part of that methodology is the discovery phase, and in that discovery phase is something called requirements gathering and information gathering, and information architecture. So when we're doing all of this stuff, what ends up happening is we go to them and say, okay, where does all this data sit? Either it's sitting in a CMS or an ERP system, you know, whatever they're using, really. We will gain access to that. Often it needs to be secured. And then from there, we will teach the LLM context or kind of whatever it is, and kind of put that in a black box. And we don't allow the LLM to grab anything from any other external sources. It's all compartmentalized and kept in one kind of safe space. And that's basically, to answer the question directly, we get it directly from the consumer, from some type of knowledge base, be it Confluence or a CMS or whatever it is. But that's where we get the information from.
Yeah, got it. Thank you for that question.
Cool.
Maybe jumping to some of the common challenges that businesses are facing when trying to implement AI-driven automation solutions. What are some of the common challenges?
So I think the common challenges are people are scared of what they don't know. So,
yeah,
you know, your first little bit is, and listen, I've been doing this, like I said, since 2016. So I've been telling a lot of people what a chatbot is over the years. You know, it's 8 years in, and I'm still explaining it. And you'll be surprised how little people understand. So I think the first challenge you're going to have is education. You need to educate them on the value these things bring. Another challenge is experience, right? A lot of clients would have never, ever, let alone go into AI. They've never even built an app or a website, for instance. So what I tend to do there is a little bit of expectation management, meaning, guys, this is the process. And while we run this process, when we get to this phase, you're going to see, you're going to think it's this, but it's not, you know? And what I mean by that is wireframing. That's not a look and feel. It's a wireframe. It's a blueprint of what your bot will look like, for instance. It's not the look and feel. It's just how will it function? It's the blueprint of everything, right? And when you move on to each phase, just make sure you manage expectations. Another challenge that we've been through is, especially with new stuff, is whoever's brought you in starts going, well, okay, well, who pays for this? Is it marketing? Is it operations? Who is it? So when you've got a new product, it was so bizarre to us that no one knew out of whose budget this would come out of.
Yeah.
The longer it's there, you know, you're going to have a little bit of an easier time kind of extracting that. But because it's new, there's no kind of base to work off of. If you're replacing their telephony system, that would be easy because we know it comes out of ops and customer experience, for instance. So, but when you're bringing something new in, everyone's looking at each other going, who's going to pay for this? So I think find that person out. Then I think one of the other problems that we've seen is often when you need to access companies' information or a knowledge base, companies have a very bad rap or very bad understanding of how to create APIs and how to access that information. So APIs and just access to information starts becoming a little bit difficult, and often the client needs to do work internally before you can do, you know, grab a hold of it and do your job. And then I think the final thing that people will have a problem with is security. So we face that a lot. So, you know, you got to have your ducks in a row, set your infrastructure up properly. I mean, we've been pen tested by anyone from Experian to Nissan to Toyota to BNP Paribas. You know, the list just kind of carries on. So be prepared that they will test your software. They will try to break it. It's their job to break it and hack it and all of those things. So try and make sure that everything on a fundamental level is as safe as it gets.
Yeah, I think the security one is a big one as well. I want to just open for anyone else who wants to ask a question. Feel free to do in the chat while I continue. So how does GotBot help businesses transition from this small scale automation projects to more of a comprehensive to enterprise-wide implementations?
Cool. So we started with RCS, for instance, right? And we were the very first pilot that went into a commercial agreement. They've been our client now for, let's call it 7 odd years, right? So it started off with a very, very small implementation, and we got that right. Again, stick to the KPIs and make sure what does success look like for your clients. Once you've marked that off, you can go back to them and say, okay, guys, through the analytics, this is probably one of the biggest failures I see in businesses is no one pays attention to the data that's being extracted by clients. So one of the like smartest things we did at GotBot is our reporting engine is mental. It's insane what we can do. I mean, we've got 8 different types of reporting, and we then call it unified reporting because it all actually feeds into one thing. But I can tell you how well the LLM's done, or the NLP engine. I can tell you when people came in, what they asked, how many times they asked it, how many products they sold, whatever it is. Make sure that your analytics are on point. And you can use all your analytics and insights to go back to the client and try and upsell them on MVP 2, right? We finished MVP 1. What does MVP 2 look like? And what we tend to concentrate on is, where is the pain coming from? So when you go to the client, be sure to ask them, like, what keeps you up at night? What, if you could make one headache go away, what would it be and why? And often they'll tell you what's keeping them up at night, and tackle that. Go for that. Because when you get that right, then they're going to ask you to do more and more kind of things. As that scales, you obviously then need to understand, as things launch, does your client have what they need to take care of this product? A lot of people don't think about that. So you're actually setting yourself up for failure. So what you have to do is say to the client, listen, when we get to launch, there's a possibility that you might need new team members, actually, or we become your team in this case, whatever it is. But you need a team after launch. Nothing just runs forever with not touching it. I wish that's the way things work. You have to, after launch, go into something what we refer to as hypercare, and help the clients do that. Okay, so basically manage the product, look at the analytics, and scale it. Then the other thing is, like, as things start scaling, you often have to scale your infrastructure. And what happens with a lot of startups is, like, you're putting everything together for this project, and then, great, we did 5,000 messages, but next week you're going to have to do 6 million messages. There's a big difference in how you do that. So I think startup founders need to be very careful in terms of how they build, what holds them down in terms of legacy, because sometimes you're going to have to rip a component out to put it in another component so you can actually scale. So I do think the CEO and CTO need to really be talking to each other in terms of, how do we scale this when our product proves its value at a client, and we start moving into millions and millions of messages from where we started with whatever, 1,000 a month. Right? So you've got to look at it from your client to your team, to your client's team, and all the way through to your product and your infrastructure.
Got it. Thanks, Nick. There is a question in the chat. basically asking if there's any tips on diving deeper into this business automation, since they're a bit clueless on what's doable and what's not.
Okay. So is the startup talking that they need tips on diving into business automation?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So let's just talk about this very, very quickly. So there's something called RPA that's been around for a long, long time, right? And there are things like UiPath, which is a framework you can use to go and do all the automation. If you're looking at tips on how to do this, I mean, there's a plethora of information out there. There are tons of different courses, things like that. I think that the main thing I would urge people to do is maybe do or have oversight on what a business analyst does. Because once you understand what a business analyst does within a business and how they break projects up into these tiny kind of compartmentalized actions, that's what's going to help you drive business automation. Because in the end, all of these little actions that your business analyst has looked at and all these mini jobs, you're going to have to automate. So you have to understand exactly what this person is doing in order to automate it. Exactly how these programs work in order to automate it. There are also things like automation. Is it called automation everywhere or automation anywhere, where people have pre-built bots to do things, you know, between XL and into zero to XL or whatever it is. So yeah, start looking at things like UiPath and anything else to do with RPA, which is robotics process automation. So that's what the bots are doing in the back end, which I think is what AGI is kind of running after or going after, because those are tons of little automated jobs that you can look at. But my main tip is think like a business analyst, because once you understand each one of those jobs, you can then figure out how to automate each one of those jobs. So hopefully that helps.
Thanks, Nick. There was another question from someone who is actually building an AI chatbot builder. And they want to know, how can they, as an AI chatbot builder startup, sustain its business against these giant competitors like OpenAI and Google?
Yeah. Man, I struggle with this one myself every day. Okay, so the things that I've learned and the things that I've seen, and I wish I'd listened to this a little bit more being myself as well, is try and find a niche and do that super, super well, right? So go and be the best chatbot building platform for automotive or banks or whatever it is, but just pick that thing and don't go a mile wide and a foot deep. Rather go a foot wide and a mile deep. So try and specialize and get that right, because you're really going to struggle going up against them. So you've got to utilize what they've done, because you're never going to beat them. You're never going to beat them. We don't have the money to beat them. Fundamentally, the models in America and the EU are completely different to how African and a lot of Asian kind of countries gain access to a market. And I'll explain that just very quickly. So an American business, a startup business, is built to get to the biggest amount of market share by burning money. Everyone here knows that word now, I'm sure. Everyone knows what burn rate is. So American companies go and they can access cash. Why? Because it's cheap. It's really cheap. 0.5%. Are you kidding me? I would own the world. They can take money really cheap, burn it, and grow market share and then turn it on, because they've got access to capital markets. When we look at African or Asian businesses, that is not the model. We cannot go and access money as freely and easily and as cheaply as American and European companies can. So our route to success is to make money as quickly as possible. So that gives you, you know, two kind of major things to look at: your access to cash and making myself profitable as quickly as possible. So I think all these young startups really, really need to look at it and go, okay, I need to go deep, get something that Google and Nvidia and Amazon and you know, all of these guys, they don't care to do it, but I can do it because I found a niche. But having said that, one of the greatest pieces of advice I got told was, yes, there's a gap in the market. That's why you're doing it, right? There's a gap in the market. But is there a market in that gap? Make sure that there is a market in that gap. So that's what I'd concentrate on. Find a niche, go deep and stick to it, and let them do all of, you know, these wonderful things and utilize them. Everyone came to me and said, oh, Nick, aren't you scared? OpenAI, they're going to take your stuff away. I'm like, dude, I'll just use all of it. Great, let them do it. I'll use all of it.
Definitely.
Great. Give it to me. I'll take it. Sure. And I'll find a great use case for it and package it nicely and on-sell it. Yes, and a couple of your clients will be really smart, and some of them will do what you do. Like one of our clients figured out how we did everything after 7 years, and we lost them. But so what? That's business.
Yeah.
You know, off we go.
Well, certainly. Thank you. Very relatable, of course.
Yeah.
You may have touched on this a bit in your use cases, but maybe you can share another success story, specifically where AI-driven automation truly transformed a client's business that you work with.
Yeah, I mean, so we've done something recently for a big car brand in South Africa. They actually are like a motor group called Motus, and very, very, very simple. They had a very unique insight that when someone buys a car, yeah, they kind of know what they want, but especially when you're buying a second-hand car, you're also willing to kind of change your mind a little bit, because if you see something really nice and it's within budget, you'd probably buy it, right? So what we ended up doing is we built a chatbot that did something super simple, which is, these are the brands I like. Yeah, they're the 4 brands I like. What brands don't you like? Oh, I don't like these brands at all. Great. How much money do you have to spend? Give them the money, all of that. And then what the AI actually did is it takes all of that information, and then it goes and looks at all the stock they have, everything, and delivers the top 10 options. Then you click thumbs up. Yes, I love this one. That's amazing. And then it gives you a secondary option again, based off of what you liked. And they're basically selling a car a day. For them, that is astronomical. If we work out the average price of a car here, right? It would be, let's just see, if let's just say we sell 350 cars for them at an average price of 150,000 Rand. I mean, we're gonna make them about 52 million Rand in sales this year, which is crazy.
Yeah.
If I could take a little margin of that, that would be great. But I think when you've got really, really smart entrepreneurs within a business, or entrepreneurs within their business, and you combine that with the street smart savviness of probably everyone that's on this call, because we all know what it takes to be an entrepreneur. I think that's where a lot of magic kind of happens, you know. And what I've also found is like, it's often the really, really, really simple ideas that do phenomenally well.
Yeah.
We can get kind of angry, like, that's a really dumb example I gave you, right? It's
Like,
really
why
stupid.
didn't I think of that?
Exactly. It's such a dumb idea, but it's actually really smart because they continued on their path. They found that core insight and they've harnessed it. And then just let me explain what's happened. So they went and they presented the findings to the CEO at their, yearly summit. And within their group, there are another 5 or 4 kind of car brands. And now we're doing Motus. Auto Pedigree comes online this month, and then we'll do Kia, Hyundai, so from our one success, it's now fed into 4 or 5 different businesses. So by the end of this month, we would have captured 3 of those businesses, which is amazing, from 1 to 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe you touched on this a bit already, but I wanted to ask, what would be the most common misconception about AI that and business automation that you would like to clear up?
Okay. Yeah, like I love people that like look at it and just think, and this is probably more from a client side, but they just think everything's easy. They just go, oh, let's just press that button and the AI will just know it.
Yeah.
No. It's the biggest misconception that you can just go out there, press a button, and the AI is going to know everything. You really need to have the patience, the time, the drive to put everything together to do the automation. Otherwise, everyone would have done it already. So when I look at everyone on this call, I think everyone on this call has the opportunity to walk into a client, do the grunt work to get their client there. And when their client's happy, that's when things kind of turn around and you get repeat business and more things start coming. But I think that's the greatest misconception, that it's easy, that it's cheap, that it's any of these things. Yes, it will pay off in the end in terms of return on investment, like 1,000-fold, but the beginning isn't easy. And if you run your own models, right? So within AWS, you get something called SageMaker, where you can literally create your own models. But I think a prompt through any AI, be it Perplexity, OpenAI, Claude, whatever it is, consumes, I think, 17% more power, more electricity than what a Google search does. There's another misconception, that it's just easy and all of this stuff. It's not, and it's expensive. So those things are definitely issues that need to be looked at, and how do we get around this? Because it's tough in the beginning because you're on the bleeding edge, right? But eventually that bleeding edge just becomes normal and just becomes part of society. Everyone's freaking out about bots and all of this type of stuff, but soon, in 5 years, everyone's going to be like, oh wow, chatbots are everywhere, and that we just use them on like day-to-day tasks.
Yeah.
Nothing's really changed.
There is a question in the chat. Would you rather create your own LLMs or rely on ChatGPT, for example, for your work?
Yes. So, okay. So I think a thing that you've got to look at, right, is what I said previously. When you create your own LLM, it's very expensive to run. So you've got to go out there and make sure that you can build a little model, test it, and work out what your LLM's going to actually cost you, right? So my advice would be go to something like AWS, go get an account with Bedrock, and within Bedrock, you would be able to choose from any of the Anthropic kind of work, being the most well-known is Claude, for instance. Then you'll have Llama, Jurassic, OpenAI, you know, all of these things. And basically just try and compare the LLMs against each other. For instance, I don't use ChatGPT for everything. I don't think it's great at research, and I think it lies to me a fair amount. But I have seen that Perplexity is very good for research on my side. So I use Perplexity for research. I use ChatGPT to help me write things and come up with certain structures. Then I use something like Claude, especially Sonnet 3.5 for some of the coding. It's really good at that. So each LLM actually has a strong and a weak point. So my advice to Anthony is I wouldn't create my own LLM. I'd go and use the backbone of an existing LLM for what it's good for that use case, and teach it the context really well, define what's in its black box really well, and it should perform a great job.
Yeah. Perfect. So
If
maybe
you've got money to burn, right? Build your LLM. If you've got tons of money, go for it. But if you don't do it.
On a positive note, I want to know what excites you the most about the future of AI and automation.
John, it's a really tough one because I'm actually really scared of it in many ways. You know, when you look at generative AI, right, it's a scary space, because if anyone understands the difference between your average AI and, you know, what people refer to as AI and generative AI, which I think everyone here is kind of playing with, generative AI is only in 3 actual sectors, which is natural language processing, in audio, and imagery. So that's where that kind of plays, right? And then when you look at you know, artificial intelligence and so on, everyone says AI, but AI is just a discipline, and we are actually in the machine learning part of it, which is basically a subfield of AI. Okay, and when I look at it in that subfield, and I start realizing what generative AI is doing in audio, for instance. I don't know if anyone's looked at what Suno's doing. That can just write, I want to write a song, I'm getting married and I want to write my wife a song. Man, this thing will do everything. It'll write the music, it will do the vocal. It's like, it's mind-blowing what it can do. So I'm fearful that it will take jobs away from the creators of the thing. I am fearful that these big companies are actually just stealing IP, your intellectual property, because where did it learn to write a song like Bob Marley? It's because they fed it all the Bob Marley songs. But did Bob Marley or his family or the trust or the record label ever give consent to do that? So we first have a very ethical kind of problem with it, which is like the scary part. But, you know, I've been able to pull off some really, really beautiful things. So I always talk about the scary stuff first. And then when I look at it, I look at my business and I go, wow, we've really helped companies out. You know, that they still have a mandate to employ people, but those people don't have any help to do what they need to do. So our tool's actually helping them. Okay, so you can view it in that way. And then when I look at like Audio Militia, I don't know if any of you would know this, but I've got a couple of businesses, but I did a very interesting job where we had this artist called Ricky Rick, and sadly he passed away. And basically we ended up and this is, guys, it's like 2 years ago now already. They asked me to take all his tweets and Instagram posts, make a song out of it, and get him to rap it, right? And if you go to audiomilitia.com, for instance, and AI and audio, you can actually read about it there. It's a very, very interesting take. So we were able to create a song to kind of advertise, you know, the family made a foundation for mental well-being and all of that type of stuff. So it can really be used for a lot of beautiful things. You know, when you're just talking about the kind of beautiful stuff. And then when you push it, the envelope all the way to the end, I think what AI is going to do in general is allow the gig economy some real space to kind of grow. So I think you're going to get to a point where you're going to have kind of one-man teams. And because the guy's so good at AI and automating everything, he can basically run an entire business by himself, which is such a bizarre thing to think about. But I think it helps massively on the gig economy side of things. And, you know, I mean, for instance, we've all had problems trying to get a piece of content out because we don't have a designer or whatever it is. I run through those problems. Man, I can get on ChatGPT and use DALL-E and tell it, oh, please make me an advert that looks like X, Y, and Z. And within 2 days, I've got something that I can basically put out. So I think it takes, again, a lot of that mundane and, you know, that crappy kind of work. And if you can get it to streamline a lot of things for you, I think you're in good stead. So those are the things I'm like excited for, but my excitement is jarring because I'm also worried on the other side, you know, when Sam Altman says things like, oh, ChatGPT 4 was a disappointment. He said he was embarrassed to put it out, are the words that he used. And then you're like, man, that's quite a hectic statement, because he said when they release ChatGPT 5, they think we will lose about 100 million jobs in the next 24 months.
Wow.
Just because of the AGI aspect of everything, you know, which is this next thing, which is AI agents, which can basically act like people in a sense within a business.
Yeah.
So yeah, quite scary. And
well,
cool.
I find ChatGPT not embarrassing. It's very helpful.
Yes, it is really helpful.
I'm sure they disagree with his statement.
Yes. So I mean, I think Sam Altman obviously knows what's coming.
Yes.
So releasing that, he was like, I'm embarrassed, because he knows what it's going to be able to do in this next iteration, which is going to be huge, you know?
I know we don't have too much time left, but I would like to just answer one of the questions in there. Can you suggest a good tool for sentiment analysis and intent analysis?
Yeah. So, I mean, okay, so I'll suppose I'll start off with just kind of giving you guys a little bit of an overview from our side. So we tend to use a lot of the AWS kind of infrastructure and so on, you know, but there's also something called Vader, which some of our guys have used. And then I know there was some stuff in, has anyone heard of Hugging Face here at all?
Yes.
Okay. So Hugging Face also has some pre-trained models for kind of sentiment analysis and things like that, which is good. And then there's something else called BERT, which has like more of a, you can really fine tune that sentiment analysis model, especially within NLP stuff. So those are probably the 3 kind of best ones that you know, we've used before and so on, you know.
Perfect.
Yeah. So Vader is VADER. Yeah, they've all got these really bad names. Hugging
Spelled
Face, Bert,
strangely.
Vader. I mean, anyway.
GotBot, very simple, easy to spell.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you, Nick. Mohammed, I don't know if you want anything else to
There's
say
another
or
one
wrap
here.
up. There was one more. I don't know if you want to chat on that real quick. Do you think blockchain will complement the security of IPs? As diving into the blockchain side of
Yeah,
things.
I know a fair amount about blockchain. I'm just trying to understand that. Do you think blockchain will complement the security of IP in the future? Complement the security of IP. I don't know if whoever asked that, who is that? Connacht, I think I'm saying it. I don't know if you want to just try and explain that a little bit more, if you're here.
Yeah, so this is the Konok Nazrul Islam. I'm the co-founder and CEO of ReplyMine. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So I was trying to say that as the IP and the web scraping is very concerning right now, because I have got some news from news agencies are blocking their site from scraping. Especially yesterday, I have seen New York Times actually block their IPs from scraping. So
Okay, so it's not intellectual property. You're talking about like your IP address.
yeah.
Okay. Sorry. My brain always just goes to IP in terms of intellectual property.
Okay. No.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, so your question is then going is around web scraping tools and things like that.
Yeah, I think it's my point of view is in the future, maybe news agencies or blogging sites will use blockchain to protect or monetize their site, something like that.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, you sound like you understand a lot of this, but I mean, I think that could be brought in from, the smart contracts kind of point
Yeah,
of view, because that's what smart
correct.
contracts do on blockchain, right? So
Right.
if you have that, I just don't know how you know if something's been taken without your permission, because if it's publicly accessible and access through a website, free login, how do
Right.
you prove it in a sense? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean, but I don't know yet. I just
Okay.
thought.
Yeah. So smart contracts could create a little bit of like transparency, because that's a whole point of a smart contract, is like when something's been put out there, it's got a whole bunch of metadata and rules, on it. So you then understand, who owned it, where is it from, is there an expiry date, all of that type of stuff, which I think is very, very interesting and needed, but in a very specific use case, it would be great, if we look at, things like, I'm just thinking of all the tokens and things like that that are being used. I'm just wondering how the IP would be affected by that. But yeah, I think you'd be able to obviously track everything, because everything on the blockchain is tracked. So you'd obviously be able to see where it is. And then you'd also be able to look at the use or the distribution of that. Like, where did it take it from? Where did it give it to? So I think you'd be able to track things a little bit easier. But the security
Yeah,
side,
maybe some technology or tools will come around in the near future for that. I think so.
I mean, it's very plausible what you're saying. But yeah, it's a very tough one. We'd probably spend a day talking about.
Yeah. Thanks
You
for
know?
thanks for your answer. Thank you.
No worries,
Thank
anytime.
you. Perfect. Thanks so much, Nick. Thank you to all those who have joined. I will share this recording with everyone afterwards, so thank you. Arif, is there anything else you wanted to wrap up with? Nope. Okay, cool.
I mean, I also just wanted to say, guys, I know we had a chat about you know, AI and all of this stuff, but I'm also happy to take any questions around, you know, business issues or things that we faced, you know, if there are any other questions. Otherwise, I'm sure, you know, Daniela is also happy to kind of wrap it up.
Yep. Perfect. I think that's it from my side. Is there anyone else who has a question? Otherwise, time has run out, but happy to answer any other questions. Cool. I think that's it from my side.
Awesome. Well, thanks, guys. Much appreciated, and I hope it wasn't too boring.
Definitely not. Thank you so much, Nick. I'm sure a
Yeah.
lot have learned from this fireside chat. So thank you.
Awesome. Absolute pleasure.
Okay. Thank you so
Well,
much.
best of luck to all the founders, and I wish you
Yes.
the best in your journeys. Just stay
Thank
strong.
you. In AI, yes, we need it. Thanks so much. We'll chat soon.
Lovely. Bye.
Bye.